Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, August the 7th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We do pride ourselves on doing proper journalism. We don't do half-ass. We don't put stuff up there that cannot be verified. We don't simply do things to get clicks or attention. Our mission in life is to basically give you the news. It's to give you the facts, to give you the sources, and we only get them from award-winning journalism sites. We don't do sensational news like Fox News, The Daily Beast, The Blaze, whatever extreme left or extreme right you may get your views from. We simply don't do that. We simply try to give you the best of what we can and what we can find. And again, unbiased, mostly unbiased. I mean, some things are just facts, but we'll get to that. But we also do try to maintain a sense of professionalism, which means that we do try to watch our language. But let's be honest, words fly. At the same time, guys, maybe things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised aside from that welcome. So, well, we might as well go ahead and get to the heart of the matter because, well, Kamala did pick somebody.
The race is heating up. The breaking news, Vice President Harris has chosen Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. And according to 538's average of national polls, Vice President Harris and former President Trump have been virtually neck and neck.
Harris is leading slightly in the battleground states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, where she is set to appear with Walz later today. Joining us now to discuss the state of the race, former New York Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good to see you.
It's great to be with you both.
So I have to ask you, what do you think of Kamala Harris's choice?
You know, what's interesting is because the right, the left, the center, Republicans, Democrats beforehand were essentially agreeing that Josh Shapiro was the stronger pick, being the governor of Pennsylvania, a very popular governor of Pennsylvania. A lot of people thought that Kamala Harris would pick Josh Shapiro. And it'll be interesting to hear from Kamala Harris about that because there's speculation that the biggest risk, the biggest vulnerability that Josh Shapiro had was his religion. He's Jewish. Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, I served with him in the House. He is further left as far as his record goes. So as far as issues related to immigration and crime and more, he has a record that is going to get picked apart. He was the pick of Senator Bernie Sanders and many on the further left of the Democratic Party. So Kamala Harris making this decision shows that she is making a calculation to try to shore up that left wing of the party. So an interesting pick as you move towards a general election. And really the battle is for the voters in the middle, the undecided, independent-minded Americans who maybe still haven't decided yet whether they're going to vote for President Trump or Vice President Harris, and whether or not they should even show up to vote, which in a year like this year really is so crazy that anyone would sit this one out.
It is definitely a big news day indeed. You got a chance to speak at the RNC last month in Milwaukee, and a lot has changed since then. The Democrats now have a lot of momentum. What do Republicans need to do to stop that?
You know, so right now with a day like today where the vice president's picking her vice presidential nominee and the Democratic convention coming up here over the course of the next couple of weeks, there's a possibility that this honeymoon period that the vice president may continue. We'll see. But you're defining a general election message. What is this campaign going to be about? And it's going to be important to communicate to the voters on where you stand on the issues that are most important to these Americans who are still undecided.
There's no question. Former President Trump has a very strong base. You mentioned those moderate, independent voters. What do you think he has to do in order to get those people to turn up to vote for him?
Great question. So if you are a voter who is an independent-minded voter talking about how the border is your top issue, President Trump should talk about his record, his actions when he was president, whether it was to build the wall, to get rid of catch and release, to enforce Remain in Mexico, Title 42. And then you had that shift under the Biden-Harris agenda where on day one, it was a top priority starting on the first day President Biden was in office, where he stopped construction of the border wall. He was ramping up catch and release. He was getting rid of Remain in Mexico. In the months that followed, getting rid of Title 42. So substantively, when you talk to these voters who are identifying as undecided, middle of the road, as you mentioned, you ask them, well, what's the most important issue to you? If they say it's the border, well, you talk about your record, talk about what's going on now under President Biden and Vice President Harris, and talk about what you would do if given the opportunity in 2025. And issue by issue, I mean, you see what's going on in Israel, in Gaza, what's happening in Ukraine. There's so much conflict on the international stage. If that undecided voter says they want to talk foreign policy, national security, well, then just get into the substance. Outline not just your record from the past, but what we're experiencing now and what you would do differently.
Okay, so long story short, Tim Walz, former governor of Minnesota, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris did choose to be her running mate for the upcoming election. And again, let's be honest, we knew Dorito would rear his ugly head. That convicted 34-count felon, of course, sat there and said on his home space of Truth Social, Walz is a disgrace to our country, but Kamala is far worse. Citing a Newsweek personal opinion about Tim Walz, saying that abandonment of his unit is unforgivable. For all that don't know, the current Minnesota governor is a member of the National Guard, to the rank of Sergeant Major. But it's amazing how they're immediately going after his military record, considering the fact that, well, let's just be honest. Republicans say they love the troops. The GOP says they love the troops. We support the troops, even though the VA is a mess, even though soldiers come back messed up, completely devoid of multiple healthcare options. The fact that the draft is now being enacted to ensure that we have an army because enlistment numbers are way down. But yet the GOP loves the troops. Figure that one out. But again, that's just one of the things Trump's got to do, because Trump does the thing that we all know so well. He has to find something wrong when somebody new threatens his way out of jail. And so Trump's probably going to forget that at one point he actually praised the Minnesota governor, especially for his handling of what happened during the George Floyd murder. As again, it's on audio, so so you be the judge.
I know Governor Walz is on the phone, and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. I asked him to do that. Get a lot of men. We have all the men and women that you need. But people aren't calling them up. You have to dominate. If you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. You have to dominate. So the best example, I alluded to it a couple of seconds ago, is Minneapolis. It was incredible what happened in the state of Minnesota. They were a laughing stock all over the world. They took over the police department. The police were running down the street, sirens blazing, the rest of them running. It was on camera. And then they wiped out. You probably have to build a new one, but I've never seen anything like it. And the whole world was laughing. 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor is, I think, on the call, and he's an excellent guy. And all of a sudden, and I said, you got to use the National Guard in big numbers. They didn't at first, then they did. And I'll tell you that, I don't know what it was. It was the third night, fourth night. Those guys walked through that stuff like it was butter. They walked right through, and you haven't had any problems since. I mean, they know they're not going to go there. Now they'll go to some other place. But once you called out and you dominated, you took the worst place and you made it. They didn't even cover it last night because there was so little action. Because you dominated.
Of course, that kind of goes on. But as you guys heard, and again, Trump at the time when he was president decided that, I'm happy with the way Tim Walz handled everything. I'm happy with the way that it all went down. And yet somehow 4 or 5 years later, oh, he's a disgrace. Yes, Tim Walz is a disgrace because let's just, if we're going to run down some accomplishments, because a lot of people right now, since Kamala Harris did announce her running mate, are looking up who Tim Walz is. And Governor Tim Walz, before he was governor of Minnesota, the man was he was enlisted National Guard. He was a teacher. He was a teacher at a high school. He actually taught overseas in China, and he's kind of had a very rural life. Although I can only imagine the only stand on his record is that he actually has a DUI, which he did admit that he did get, to which he no longer drinks, which again, an example of somebody who paid their debt to society and tried to be an improved person. But let's think about the things that he has done as governor. I mean, he did sign a $2.3 billion educational bill into law, which I think was the largest financial investment in the state's history. He did actually do what President Biden would have loved to done. He did codify reproductive freedom, which basically covered abortion rights, transgender rights, gender affirming care, all done in the state of Minnesota. Again, under his run, legalize marijuana, and actually expund those with marijuana convictions on their records. And I keep saying this all the time. These states that are actually doing better and moving forward have things like this put in place. They really do. He also got in, if I remember correctly, Minnesota's the only state that has paid leave, paid sick days, paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave, up to almost 12 weeks, I think, give or take a number. Also went toe-to-toe with companies like Amazon for protection warehouses and drivers, things of that nature. He also had tax breaks put in for seniors, for child tax credits. I was going to say expanding the voting rights. If I'm right, I'm sorry, guys, I'm kind of working off memory here. He actually got automatic voter registration done in Minnesota. Absentee voting status, registering, basically all the things we wanted to have in the National Voting Rights Act. He actually had Minnesota. I was going to say lowering prescription drug costs, making, really trying to get universal school lunches. Universal school lunches are a thing in Minnesota public schools, by the way. And, protection from elderly abuse for seniors, affordable housing. The man, as his time as governor, and of course, you can look all this up. I was really kind of going off memory of everything. So I apologize. I should have had a full list. But again, apologies. But the man has done a lot. The man himself has done a lot. And of course, everybody's like, well, Shapiro was there. I don't think Shapiro is not. I think Shapiro might be a part of Madam Vice President's future presidential cabinet if everybody does what they're supposed to do. Because as much as I would have loved to have, and I'll say this all the way. It is a fool's dream. Yes, I would have loved to see a 2 black woman ticket for presidency. I would have loved to see that because there were plenty of women out there in the political world that would have been a great Madam Vice President to Madam President. But I get it. You have to have a white guy. You have to have a white guy, so you can't sit there and look like you're being completely one-sided, I guess. But Tim Walz seems to be a great pick. He basically was also picked by Bernie Sanders, so they're going to come after him for the progressive side of things and being labeled as a quote-unquote socialist. So they're going to come after him for that. But his record stands up. What he has done in Minnesota on the progressive side has moved that state forward. I cannot knock that. Meanwhile, in the world of J.D. Vance, who can't seem to get away from a couch, trust me, if I told you the couch joke, you probably will look at that man the same way again. And there's just some things I can't unsee. Well, remember that whole thing about J.D. Vance saying there's going to be a bunch of childless cat ladies out there because he believed that parents actually can make better decisions than single people? His wife, Usha Vance, goes on Fox News to do a little damage control. Didn't really help.
Well, I mean, I took a moment to look and actually see what he had said and try to understand what the context was and all that, which is something that I really wish people would do a little bit more often. And the reality is he made a quip in service of making a point that he wanted to make that was substantive, and it had actual meaning. Because what he was really saying is that it can be really hard to be a parent in this country. And sometimes our policies are designed in a way that make it even harder. And we should be asking ourselves, why is that?
You know, I get the whole thing as married people, they always say, you know, support in public, correct in private. I think this is a moment where Mrs. Vance should have sat there and corrected her husband. Like, she should have had the look of, are you freaking kidding me? It's like, you understand that comment was going to come back to haunt you, right? Women are not running to vote for you. Matter of fact, I'm not liking the fact that I am now dealing with the MAGA group who doesn't even like me because of my skin tone and my heritage, which is kind of funny if you think about it, that, you know, she signed up for this thinking that she was going to be spared. Oh, cue Francesca Ramsey's I Thought the Leopards Would Eat My Face. I would love if she sung on that part. But it's not surprising that, of course, she's going to come out and defend her husband. I get that. But she tried to sit there and say, well, it was just that, you know, people should, you know, really look at what the man's trying to say. It's not a deep, provoking thought, Mrs. Vance, what he said. If anything, he sounded idiotic. He sat there and said, you people should have kids because people with kids make better decisions. Not always the case. At the same time, having children or deciding not to have children doesn't make you any different as far as being in a place where your decisions can affect millions. It doesn't. It should give you perspective, maybe, but it doesn't make you any better. But at the same time, JD Vance got to learn to, you know, get off the couch, literally and figuratively. I'll leave it at that. But move right along in stories, guys, because, again, we got a lot. I did not expect this. Supreme Court rejects Missouri lawsuit to block Trump's sentencing and gag order in New York hush money case. Keep in mind, he, again, was the case that he lost regarding what had happened because, again, he paid a porn star that he messed with while his pregnant wife during a presidential campaign, to where all this humorous came forth. And, of course, he was found guilty. Now, I find it funny that this was done in New York, and yet the court case that's trying to countersue this is from Missouri, which, again, we all worry because whenever it comes to Trump, what does he always say? Well, we're just going to take away the Supreme Court. Again, where the Supreme Court is conservative leaning, and you have a whole bunch of judges who would rather do the, trust me, bro, I'm a Supreme Court justice, I'm infallible. When Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito have showed us, no, you are not. In fact, you are up for sale. But again, I am so glad that they actually did reject the suit. Now, did they reject the suit because, you know, maybe they're under scrutiny? I could say that. But let's be honest. It's the same case that's happening in Florida where the FBI was trying to bring charges against Trump because he basically had almost damn near a warehouse full of documents he wasn't supposed to have. And the judge in that case threw the whole thing out. Reason being because the special counsel, which I have to point out all the time, the special counsel that the Trump and his lawyers requested for this case, the Trump-appointed judge presiding over it sat there and said that that special counsel was unconstitutional. Excuse me? How is it unconstitutional? The defense requested it. They were granted it. They looked into it, found out not only did Trump have the documents, knew about the documents, showed other people who weren't cleared, and yet the judge presiding over it decided to throw it out and was a Trump-appointed judge. Do you see why a lot of people look at Trump and it's like, you're like the cockroach that for some odd reason you can throw raid at it, you can bug bomb it, you can throw bleach at it. For some odd reason, it somehow thrives and keeps going. The cockroach is Donald Trump. Because we keep saying every time, this is going to be the one that puts him down. This is going to be the one that puts him down. And yet, a lot of people fear that because he's running for president, because he has a cult behind him, that certain things will get pushed to the wayside. And we're seeing that now. Even though anybody else that would have committed mortgage fraud on the scale that he did for the number of years that he did, let's be honest, would not be out and free right now. That is almost organized crime level. That is basically Al Capone level. And yet this man is still running for president unscathed. And do you see why people call him a cockroach? I know I do. Because again, he tries to get out of everything. And make no mistake about it, this is not being unbiased, guys. Trump is only running for presidency to avoid jail. That's it. No fuss, no muss. He is only doing this to avoid jail. And trust and believe, if Madam Vice President does win the presidency, Trump will either croak or go to jail. One of the two. I'm still betting on the Simpsons. I'm still betting on the Simpsons prediction. But anyway, speaking of the Madam Vice President, and I did not have this on my bingo card, a lot of PACs are coming out of nowhere, or coming out of the woodwork, I should say, supporting presidential candidates. Either you're supporting Cockroach Trump or you're supporting Madam Vice President. Well, Republicans for Harris was not on my bingo list of 2024. A group out there calling themselves Republican for Harris actually did launch. At the same time, are actually supporting the Madam Vice President, saying that, you know, the GOP party is not what it used to be. It's now become a cult. And that, again, Trump is dangerous and should not be elected president. So now they're actually behind Kamala Harris and Kamala Harris, I should say Waltz, and actually not only throwing campaign money behind it, but also trying to reach out to other Trump voters to convert, or anti-Trump voters to get them notice. I'm going to be honest. That was not on my bingo card of 2024 to see Republicans for Harris. And don't get me wrong, everything right now that's happening. But keep in mind, this was the same group that was Republicans for Joe Biden until Joe Biden did drop out the race, and then they switched to Republicans for Kamala Harris. Still, to see some Republicans actually starting to see the light. It's kind of wonderful to see that. At the same time, Republicans for Harris was not on my bingo card. But you know what is on my bingo card? Black conservatives. I will never get over black conservatives. I think it's an oxymoron. I think how could you be black and how could you be conservative? You are basically voting against your own. You're basically for a narrative that is against you. You're basically for a narrative that does not care about you, devalues you even. And even more so, Byron Donalds and Tim Scott. You guys do remember before Trump decided to go with J.D. Vance that these two were all over the airwaves, samboing and tap dancing and almost doing the soft shoe for their massa convicted felon Donald Cockroach Trump. Well, of course, after J.D. Vance was picked as Trump's VP, Tim Scott decided to call off his marriage and call off his fake marriage and, you know, maybe disappear back into the one senator seat that he has left, being the only black person on a party that, well, doesn't represent or likes him. But Florida Republican Byron Donalds, this man believes that, hey, if I can't be VP, maybe I could be in Trump's cabinet. Let me just go on ABC News this week and pretty much say what I should say to Kamala Harris, or I should say his marching orders from his massa Donald Trump.
Ally Byron Donalds. Congressman, thank you for joining us this morning. Why is former President Trump questioning the vice president's racial identity?
Well, first, George, in Chicago, he was responding to a question from, I believe, Rachel Scott. Like, this is really a phony controversy. I don't really care. Most people don't. But if we're going to be accurate, when Kamala Harris went into the United States Senate, it was AP that said she was the first Indian American United States Senator. It was actually played up a lot when she came into the Senate. Now she's running nationally. Obviously, the campaign has shifted. They're talking much more about her father's heritage and her Black identity. It doesn't really matter. The president mentioned it. What he also talks about far more frequently is the fact that Kamala Harris is the person who created this massive inflation, which is destroying Black families, white families, Hispanic families. It's her failure as border czar that has left our southern border wide open, more than 10 million illegal immigrants coming into our country, record fentanyl coming into our country, which has killed more Americans than at any other point in the history of our country with respect specifically to fentanyl. And the fact that she and Joe Biden have unleashed one of the worst foreign policies in the history of our country that has us on the verge of World War III. That is Kamala Harris's record. President Trump talks about that frequently, but yes, he did mention it in Chicago in response to a question from Rachel Scott.
And you just repeated the slur again. If it doesn't matter, why do you all keep questioning her identity? She's always identified as a Black woman. She is biracial. She has a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. She's always identified as both. Why are you questioning that?
Well, George, first of all, this is something that's actually a conversation throughout social media right now. There were a lot of people who are trying to figure this out. But again, that's a side issue, not the main issue. The main issue.
Sir, one second. You just did it. You just did it again.
Of the United States.
Why do you insist on questioning her racial identity?
You want me to talk?
I want you to answer my question.
George, now that you're done yelling at me, let me answer. He talked about it on the stage yesterday in Atlanta for what, 2 minutes? He spent more than 35, 40 minutes going after her record, talking about how radical of a senator that she was. She was the most liberal senator in the United States, in the United States Senate. That is a fact. He talked about the job that she did as vice president of the United States, a job, I will add, which has been a failure for the American people. I know you guys like to glom on to this that he talks about in jest or in a serious manner for about a minute or so, but what you do not cover is the litany of failures of Kamala Harris. That's what you're not covering, George.
So questioning somebody's racial identity for a couple minutes is okay?
George, I'm going to tell you again, he brought it up. AP is the one that wrote the headline when she first came in to the United States Senate. Didn't talk about her being Black, talked about her being the first Indian American senator. AP brought that up. I mean, George, we could have this conversation for the entire segment, but none of this matters to the American people. What matters to the American people is, are we going to have the same policies of the Biden-Harris administration that has been destructive of the American people? Or are we going to have the policies of the Trump administration, which put America first, had low inflation, prosperous Americans, no matter your race, no matter your color, no matter your creed, and a foreign policy that kept America safe? Those are the facts that truly matter, because this issue is going to come and go. The lives of the American people is what's going to remain, and that's what matters more than anything else.
If it doesn't matter, I don't understand why you keep on repeating it, why the president keeps on repeating it, why those introducing the president yesterday
George,
keep on
actually,
repeating
I'm not the one who keeps repeating it. George, you're the one that's bringing it up now. That's
You've done it,
I understand why
sir.
You've
done it. You've done it 3
George,
times. Every single answer you gave me. Now let me finish, sir.
George,
every single answer you gave, you repeated the slur.
Asked me, George. That's why I'm pushing back on you now. George, you asked me the question 3 times. I responded, but
and every single time you repeat the slur. That is exactly my point. You simply can't say that it's wrong.
George, so then what you're saying, and I want to get off this topic because it's not the only thing that's going on. But George, now you're saying that AP is the one that slurred Kamala, because those are the facts to talk about the future of our country, because the American people are struggling. The American people do need serious policy decisions to be made, and they need serious leadership on the world stage. Kamala Harris has not proven that she can do that. Donald J. Trump has proven that he can do that.
AP did not say that Kamala Harris is not black. She is biracial. She is Indian. She is black. You continue to repeat the fact that you continue to repeat the slur. I don't understand why you and the president do it, but it's clear you're not going to say that it's wrong. And you've now established that for our audience. Trump also said at the convention that he would pardon January 6 rioters.
Everybody look for themselves. Let's move on.
I've already said that. Go ahead.
Internet, everybody.
So I'm going to cut it right there just because I will give George Stephanopoulos credit. Forgive me if I destroyed your last name. He tried. And I'm so glad I'm actually seeing more journalists do this. The only thing that I wish they would do from here on out, when you get idiots who want to appease to Trump so bad that they will Sambo them ways, they will pull a Steve Harvey, if you will. And yes, I said Steve Harvey because he'll pull that same mess too. But Stephanopoulos just sat there and said, I am pointing out the fact that your candidate is going forward and is pretty much saying Kamala Harris isn't black. Why does it sound familiar? Wasn't this the same convicted felon Donald Trump that turned around and said President Obama is not a real American? Let us see the birth certificate, Obama. Obama doesn't have a birth. Obama's not an American. Obama. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? Because it wasn't too long ago that Trump turned around and accused a president, a man who was born here, who was born in Hawaii, a man who basically was of the Harvard Law Review, a man who is a constitutional expert, a senator out of Chicago, and yet rose to be a president, the first black president of the United States. During his presidential run, all you heard was, oh, I don't think Obama's an American. I think Obama was someone they brought along because he talks so smooth. He's so very clever. He can't be an American. I want to see the birth certificate. The birth certificate was seen, and what happened? He shut up. Not without him saying, well, it took so long for the birth certificate. We don't know if it's real or not. That was Trump. And the scary part about that is that wasn't a time when he wasn't even considered running for office. He decided to throw it out there for attention, and people jumped on it. What's the relevancy to this? I don't think Kamala Harris is black now. Kamala. She's black now. Do you understand what he's doing in this case? He is repeating her name. Destroying her name, actually. He's not even giving it the respect of Madam Vice President in front of it. But he's sitting there saying, oh, she's black now. And this is all from his disastrous interview with the National Association of Black Journalists. And I still haven't forgotten them for inviting Trump and then putting on that travesty of a show of letting Harris Faulkner, again, another plant from Fox News, in on this whole thing and drive the conversation because he's the only person she was the only black woman he responded to. The other women there who were trying to do their jobs, he called mean and rude, and all they were trying to do was keep them on post with facts. Now, Byron Donalds, of all people, should know off the bat, you're going to Sambo. We know you're going to Sambo for Trump. You're going to sing and dance. You're going to turn around and just repeat yourself saying that Trump never said that, the AP said that, and that, it's getting away from all the issues because Kamala Harris isn't it, but Trump has proven himself. My God, any more of a spokesperson for Trump, you might as well have, you know what you need to do? And Robert Williams, God rest his soul, he said it best. For all those that are just going to be representing somebody, you need to wear those NASCAR jackets that actually have the logos of everybody that's purchased you. You need to. So we all know who you're bought and paid for. Byron, again, Donalds, a representative out of Florida, he's only doing what he knows to do best. He decides to kiss the ring and hope to God it gets him somewhere. Paris was also on CNN and doing this. Paris Lane was doing the same thing on CNN, defending Trump, and you see where he is now, off camera. Just saying. But it is amazing to me how far he will go to defend a man that literally has zero accomplishments. And that would be Donald Trump. Whereas Madam Vice President Kamala Harris and her VP have several. J.D. Vance only has a book deal, which, again, was more of a fictional storytelling of where he came from. But I digress. But speaking of Trump, Trump decided that, you know, although he's been ducking and dodging Madam Vice President Kamala Harris on the debate, he has turned around and said, yes, I will debate you on Fox News.
Democrats changed the conditions because, of course, they brought a new candidate. He did agree to ABC. Now he's saying, totally different race. I want Fox, and I want an audience here. Is he going to win that argument?
I think he is. I mean, look, to be fair, it was a completely different candidate. 17 million people voted in primaries for Joe Biden and selected him. And then 2,500 people went online a couple days ago and said, no, we have a new candidate. That agreement. I mean,
she was a vice president, though. So
understood. If President Biden wants to keep that first debate, I think that's fine. I think it's completely acceptable and, frankly, deserved for that to be a new conversation.
Okay, your response, Maria?
I think it shows that he's terrified of debating somebody as good as Kamala Harris. I think it shows that he wants to do it on Fox. He wants to do it with an audience because those two things are like security blankets for him. And that's what he needs right now. This race has completely discombobulated him and the people around him. They have no idea how to approach running against somebody who is so accomplished, who is whip smart, who has a background as a prosecutor, and Donald Trump is a 34 times convicted felon.
One of the most expensive.
So again, I love how the fact that she said at the end exactly why Trump wants us on Fox News. Number one, Fox News is not a real news, media conglomerate. They're not. If anything, Dominion has proven that. And I will be forever mad at Dominion because they had the ability to take Fox News to court to have everybody testify, and they didn't. And I will be forever mad at Dominion for settling because you could have actually put the stake in Dracula and you chose not to. So, again, kind of mad at y'all for that. But the other part, Trump wanting to go from ABC News to Fox News and have an audience. Just like she said, Trump is a con man. Con men need an audience. Con men need flair. They need a place to perform. It's almost like a circus act. And if you guys remember from the Biden-Trump debate, there was no audience. There was nothing to react off of. It was just those two guys. So why not, again, have a debate in the same format? I truly believe you should. Because I like the only thing I would add to it, outside of it being on not being on Fox News, because I'm sorry, Fox News is going to cater to Trump. They've always have. At the same time, I miss the fact when moderators had a mute button. I mean, if you really think about it, the Biden-Trump debate was perfect. Moderators had a mute button. They held them to their time limits. There was no crowd to run off. There was no crowd to feed off of. And the only thing I wish they did, I really wish that we'll probably never see this in the debate. I don't think we will. But the one thing I wish they would do is every time they try to sit there and give a point on something, there should be a fact checker right there. So where the moderator would go, okay, hey, thank you for response. Fact checker? Is that correct? Or was he full of shit? He was full of shit, sir. Okay, so we know that was a lie. So that part should be there. Because I think we should hold candidates to the fire. I really think we do. Trump is not a good debater. We know this. We know this all too well. Because Hillary ran circles around this man. Given Biden, although his age and impairment, things of that nature, granted, wasn't the best debate performance. We all have bad nights. Everybody has a bad night. Unfortunately, they happened to be on that night. But Madam Vice President Kamala Harris and future VP Governor Walz seem to be very good at talking and very good at giving key points. Vance, already with childless cat lady comments, make me seem like that's going to be a long night for him. But on Fox News, that's Trump's playing field, unfortunately, because they will cater to him. The questions will not be very hard. And at the same time, I can't help but feel like it'll be a little home cooking done for him, because Fox News is Trump's state-run propaganda. It's the reason why Vance and his wife ran to Fox News to explain their side of the story. It's their safe bubble, a bubble that could have been bursted had Dominion took him to court. That's all I'm saying. But moving right along, guys, we covered the story last year about Kansas police raiding this local newspaper, saying for obstruction of evidence. Well, kind of found out that was bullshit, because now the police chief who was behind that raid will now be facing criminal charges, because again, it's called abuse of power. Because the publication at that time was basically not shining a fair. So they tried to say that, oh, well, this publication might be obstruction of justice in current investigations. So what did they do? They decided to raid it. We covered the story last year because we thought it was weird that this Marion police chief and his unit would decide to investigate a news publication and not give a good reason. So now he's facing criminal charges for overstepping his bounds, abuse of power, things of that nature. So let's just be honest, expect a resignation. But again, I was glad that there's some justice being done, but I think more should be done on that, because that was an overextent of law enforcement. And speaking of an overextent of law enforcement, and I know this is going to still be a sore spot, Sonia Massey, always say her name, the deputy who shot her. And again, this is the reason why I say, regardless if you're accused or you're a defendant, or if you're the assailed or you're the defendant, the reason why being silent until your court date would probably help you. However, in this case, the man that you see there was the man that headshotted, or I should say murdered, Sonia Massey, because for all those that don't remember the video, she was sitting down. They told her to go turn that stove off because of the pot, and it was hot water. And all she said was, "Oh, you think I'm going to throw this hot water on you? I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." This gringo right here, Sean Grayson, is saying that that was an intent to kill him. Are you freaking kidding me? He says on his confession, I interpreted this to mean she was going to kill me. Unless you're Satan, I don't know how. Unless a demon has possessed you, I don't know how saying I rebuke you in the name of Jesus is going to mean I'm going to unalive you. Again, this man murdered Sonia Massey. The man next to him should be an accessory to murder. Both men should no longer be police officers, and honestly, it should be life in prison. It really should be. I am really hoping that is going to be the case, because this man did not act within the boundaries of a law enforcement officer. He acted like somebody who thought he can get away with shooting somebody as long as he said the right words. And rebuking and saying that I fear for my life because she rebuked me in the name of Jesus, I'm sorry, that shit's not going to fly. But we'll cover it as it comes along. Still keeping with what's going on in Milwaukee, guys. We covered this story, I want to say 2 weeks ago, about hotel workers who decided to hold a man down until he basically suffocated. Those hotel workers are now seeking new employment as well as murder charges.
It's been 37 days since Devontae Mitchell was killed outside the Hyatt Regency. 37 days of waiting, praying, and protesting without any charges or arrests.
Say his name!
Tuesday afternoon, the four men seen in this viral video on top of Mitchell were charged.
It's a small victory, but we're grateful because we've been stepping for him, and we're going to keep stepping, and we've seen what this stepping got us. We've seen what it got us, but we want these charges to stick.
Surrounded by love and support, Mitchell's siblings say justice has just begun.
We are grateful for the DA, making this move today, that he did. And we just hope that he keeps moving forward with doing the right thing.
Todd Erickson, Brandon Turner, Herbert Williamson, and Devin Johnson Carson, all former Hyatt employees, all charged with felony murder.
We felt that it should have happened sooner, but we are relieved today, finally, that they have charges brought for the killing of Devontae Mitchell.
We're also getting a first look into Milwaukee Police's investigation of Mitchell's murder. A criminal complaint details the events we've already seen on Hyatt surveillance video. Mitchell running from Brandon Turner, the off-duty security guard. Turner punching him repeatedly, pulling him to the ground, dragging him out of the hotel, and eventually this scene of the 4 men on top of him. The complaint states Mitchell does not instigate any violence or display any obviously aggressive or threatening behavior while on the hotel premise. It also claims Mitchell stopped showing movement or resistance or other signs of life as he's pinned to the ground for what police say is 8 to 9 minutes. The on-duty security guard, Todd Erickson, allegedly told police he and the other Hyatt security are not certified or trained. He also says Hyatt did not provide them with training in defense and arrest tactics.
And it's a bittersweet win because really we shouldn't be celebrating anybody getting charged for killing my brother because it should have never happened in the first place.
In Milwaukee,
Justice for Devontae!
Jenna Ray, TMJ.
So again, we are actually seeing that those 4 men were fired, as well as murder charges being brought up. All great things. However, the issue is still there that why do these 4 men decide that sitting down on somebody, and this is the thing I don't get, because if you're 4 guys, you're 4 to 1. You're telling me, and I still can't figure this out. 4 to 1, you guys can't get one person in a sitting position once you subdue them. That's the part I don't get. And your hotel security, you're telling me you don't have any tie downs, nothing to restrain him by arms behind his back as you get him to a sitting position, but you sit on him. And it's like, how have we not learned that sitting on an individual, especially face down, restricts their breathing? How have we not figured that out by now? But at the same time, I am glad that justice is being done, but it shouldn't just be those 4 men. It really shouldn't, because those 4 men were fired because Hyatt wants nothing to do with this. Hyatt hotels don't want to have murder and their hotels associated with it. It's bad for business. So, of course, those 4 men got fired. But those 4 men who were either hotel security, hotel workers, they were trained by somebody. They were directed by somebody. And that somebody is still employed with the hotel. So where's the accountability? Because right now Hyatt's saying, oh, it's just these 4 workers. You can have them. They're no longer Hyatt employees. Go ahead. Whereas somebody who trained them is still there. We'll probably hire again. So I'm sorry, that's not enough. It really, truly isn't, because there's no accountability on the Hyatt side for this. Because again, this is 4 former Hyatt employees that decided to basically act beyond the means of their security, and a person died. I'm sorry, just firing 4 of those employees does not absolve the hotel. Somebody's got to take accountability for it. That's all I'm saying. But before we get 2 more stories, guys, before we get to our feel good segment, this one, again, imagine that you won, and I say this is kind of a longer one, but imagine you ran for office for mayor. You won. However, because the state that you're in decided to go through a whole rigmarole of re-challenging the election, saying in some ways the election was interfered for your benefit. Imagine fighting for more than a couple of years to finally take the mayoral seat, and even then, it's a crawl. It's not a movie. It's not a story. It's actually happening with the first elected Black mayor out of Alabama.
Former city council have admitted the city did not hold elections going back 6 decades, but claimed they had held a special election in 2020 and that they won. But the attorneys for Mayor Braxton say that is still disputed. And our Lindsay Davis spoke earlier today with the now current Mayor Braxton and his attorney.
We're joined now by Mayor Braxton, along with his attorney, Leah Wong. Thank you both so much for joining us. Mayor, you now have the keys to town hall, access to the accounts, and you were just sworn in over the weekend. How does it feel after such a long fight?
Oh, it feels wonderful. It's a relief.
How has the city reacted now that all of this has been settled?
I think it was a sign of relief and joy, and we're gonna put it behind us and try to move forward, and and keep moving with the city as we go day by day.
Well, now that you finally have the ability to do your job, what's on your agenda for the city? What's first up?
The first thing that was Friday, that was Thursday. I got a lot of citizens out, and they helped me cut. They volunteered, help cut grass, pick up paper, and try to clean up the city for the inauguration. And I think everybody will, work with me and try to, better the city and clean up and make things, beautify for the town.
What's been the most difficult part of all this?
The difficult part is you got someone else calling themselves the mayor and holding the keys and knowing they was not the mayor. That was the difficult part about it. And then it seems like a slap in the face that you've been elected, the duty elected, and someone else wouldn't step down and never, deceive and pass everything over to you.
Did you ever think that you would see this day?
I kind of figured, if I didn't see it at the end of this term, next term, it was going to be election somewhere, and I was going to, get my right to see, at the end of this term, or a new election.
How will elections be handled going forward to ensure this doesn't happen again?
I think it was really profound for everybody in the town to hear from the defendants themselves that, there were no elections held for mayor or town council for decades. And moving forward, Mayor Braxton gets a year to fill out his term, and then there are municipal elections next year. And he and his new town council will be in charge of holding the first ever elections in New Bern for mayor and town council. And it's also part of the settlement agreement that the court has jurisdiction over this case. So the court will see to it that elections are held next year at the very least.
And is there anything going to happen to those who did prevent Mayor Braxton from actually fulfilling his duty?
Unfortunately, not under the law. The judge dismissed these individual defendants and just held the town of New Bern as the only defendant. I think that at the end of the day, we spoke with our plaintiffs. I know Mayor Braxton will speak to this. He and the plaintiffs just really wanted elections in the town more than anything. And I think it really speaks to how they always put the town first in this case.
And Mayor Braxton, we heard from your city council in that clip. Will they all be returning as well?
Yes, I'll be returning back to the seats.
And when is your first meeting?
That's what I've been talking with my attorney today, and we're trying to set up a date and a time for my first meeting with my city council.
Mayor Patrick Braxton, attorney Leah Wong, we thank you both so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Crazy, isn't it? That man was elected, and yet they try to do everything in their power to sit there and say he can't take office. And we keep, I can't stress that enough. It's almost as if Dorito, convicted felon Trump, decided that, hey, maybe this election is not going to go the way I want to. Maybe I'm not going to be comfortable with a transfer of power. And I wouldn't be surprised. But it is amazing to me that when they get in office, it's no struggle. But when we get in office, we must make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the P's are pirouetted. We have to make sure because we want a safe and fair election. Imagine only one side saying that. A safe and fair election, where elections have been fair and safe, and the only time there's ever been election fraud has been toward conservatives. And yet now you have an individual who is a mayor in Alabama that had to fight for 3 years for something that was clear cut. this is why I keep saying, guys, when it comes down to it, we must be active, because whether you believe in Project 2025 or not, or Agenda 47, whether you believe in it or not, these are things that those type of people are trying to put in place to make sure they are set up for the next generation. And again, we've seen what they will do when they're desperate. Do you want to see what they'll do when they're comfortable? And I mean completely comfortable. And a great example of what happens when they're comfortable is what's going on in Louisiana right now, where again, the 10 Commandments are basically being put up in every public school, to which a lot of parents are understandably so in uproar about it. Here's what the governor had to say about it.
I did not know that the 10 Commandments was such a bad way for someone to live their life. And I believe that the legislature was only following the will of the people of the state. Because when you look at the sheer votes that were cast in the support of this bill, it was done in a bipartisan support.
For the children who may not believe in God and see this in their classroom, or parents who are upset that may be in their child's classroom, what should they do?
Well, here's what I would say. I think we've forgotten in this country that democracy actually means majority rules. For some kind of way, over the last 2 decades or so, for whatever reason, our government has flipped the script, or the people believe that we flipped the script. When you elect people, you elect them by a majority. That majority gets to rule. That does not mean that if you don't like something, you have a right to impose that which the majority likes. And so what I would say to those parents is that if those posters in school and they find them so vulgar, just tell the child not to look at it.
Yeah. Don't look at it. I mean, I love the fact that, he sat there and said, well, we're living in democracy. And, when it comes to majority, when the majority is voted in, the majority can rule over it. And here's the thing why he doesn't understand what he's getting from this. Because the House Bill 71 is where it came from. And yes, it did pass overwhelmingly. However, the Louisiana state government has a massive majority of Republicans. You can sit there and say the majority voted for it because it's easy. You had mostly Republicans and some Democrats that voted for this. Some. But here's the thing. When you have a supermajority in both your chambers of your state legislature, Louisiana and Tennessee are the same way, it will seem like everybody was for it. But in reality, your party was for it. Your party was for always introducing church and state for some odd reason, because you have this extreme religious group of people where if they get just enough of their people in here, they can push stuff forward that they've always wanted. We want to defund public schools. How do we do that? Introduce charter schools and private schools and say private schools should get public funding. Really, the same public funding that you get to public schools? Exactly. Why do we do that? Defund education. Make sure that these students are doing so horribly on testing and whatnot that public schools will be seen as an eyesore, and therefore will bump up charter schools and private schools as a way to actually appease parents. And then we'll introduce school choice, which we will give the voucher to these parents saying, hey, if you want your kid to go to that school, go ahead. We'll take the funds given to public schools to give to you to send your child to whatever school you want them to go to. Do you see the whole process there? So religion, they want to introduce, we took prayer out of schools. We've never taken prayer out of schools. That's what the moment of silence is for. You know what we actually did? We became more aware that other religions outside of Christianity exist. So therefore, instead of labeling just one religion above all, we decided to give you time to do your thing, regardless if you believe or not. That's what we did. And of course, Christians don't like that because Christians always believe they're prosecuted. They're always believing that they're under persecution. that their rights and views are always under scrutiny, which they're not. Because obviously the 10 commandments being put up in a public school doesn't do shit, since six of those commandments really wouldn't apply to those going to school. I'm just saying. However, I was on the other side of it all. If you're going to put the 10 commandments in school, put up the 10 rules from the Church of Satanism. Put up the rules of conduct from the Quran. Put up the 10 laws of the 10 Hindu laws. I believe that's what they're called. The 10 good laws or something like that. But anyway, what I'm getting at is put up different rules and regulations from other religions, because now you've opened the door to it. And see what happens. Just see what happens. Because I guarantee if I turn around and told you, oh yeah, by the way, with those 10 commandments, also put 10 rules from the Church of Satanism. Well, we can't do that. Well, then how are you allowed to do that? How are you allowed to put 10 commandments? It's the same thing. You get to practice your religion. I get to practice mine. We were doing it before the moment of silence because now you want to label yours as the religion of the state. Therefore, I have a problem with it because now you're persecuting me and my religion. And all Louisiana had to do was not do it at all. There were other things they could have pushed forward besides making sure that their religion was recognized as an official religion. That's how nationalism starts. But again, good luck, Louisiana. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes use your faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow, it's Wednesday hump day. Tomorrow is pre-Friday, which is Thursday. And we will leave you guys out some good vibrations. And hopefully this next thing will do that. But before I show this clip, yes, it is from the Olympics. Yes, it is, I'm rooting for everybody black at the Olympics. I got to say something to the International Olympics Committee that likes to flag these videos. We show these things because we are proud of our athletes. I know a lot of people are sitting there saying black people are only proud whenever it comes to they're only proud of the USA when it comes to Olympics. Let's get something straight. Black people love America. Our ancestors built the place that, some napkins have gotten advantages from. It doesn't mean that when we see our own on national television, achieving great things of feat or showing their dominance, we show this because we want our future generations to see what they're capable of. Whether you're Simone Biles, Jasmine Child, whether you're a fencer, whether you're a shot putter, whether you're a water polo, speed skater, the fact is when our people actually see our people succeed on a international platform, it makes us proud. That being said, Gabby Douglas, again, when doing her thing on the 200-meter race. And again, Gabby Thomas. I will never, ever get tired of seeing black excellence. So congratulations to her. She did win the gold for the 200 meters in Paris. I'm for everybody black because, again, not just them. Brazil, I forget the one for Brazil that she won, and also in gymnastics. I apologize completely. I should actually know your names because I want to give you guys the recognition that you deserve. But understand, whenever it comes to competitions, whether it be the Olympics, the national championships, or anything else, just to go ahead and clarify, I'm rooting for everybody black. That being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching, letting people know this is live. So we appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I will always talk about blurredstation.com. Again, blurredstation.com. It is the table that we've always asked for. Our Amazon, our Hulu, our Netflix, our Amazon Prime. So where you can watch movies, television shows, animation, comics, things of that nature. You can find out here at Blurred Station, $10.99 a month. Hit the Join Now button. Select the Bird's Eye View Affinity membership. Select my name there at Black Spartan. It is $10.99 a month, guys. At 36 months of paying $10.99 a month, you can get the option to own a piece of Blurred Station. To own a piece of a media conglomerate is always a great thing. Content creators, your content can also be shown on blurredstation.com. You must join as a member first, and from there, you'll be able to speak to the people behind the curtain. And if all works well, then, of course, your content can be seen on Blurred Station, content that you own. That's right. We don't pull a Tubi. You own your own content. But definitely check them out at blurredstation.com. As myself, guys, On the interwebs, Black_Spartan615. You can definitely find me there. The link at the bottom, guys. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link in your browser, take you to my YouTube page. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit and Influence Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Let people know a like, a share, and a follow, guys, costs nothing but means everything. At the same time, guys, you can also find us on Always Record TV, APR TV, which is actually an app that can be found everywhere, including Roku, so you can see many other shows like mine, whether on your smart device or TV, completely up to you, but I hope you do watch. And of course, podcasts can be seen and found wherever podcasts you get your podcast from. So with that being said, guys, again, next week, I haven't decided whether or not I might be taking a little bit of a sabbatical, or reason being because there's a new edition coming, and I want to make sure to give her all the love and attention she deserves. But if I don't, guys, I stress this very heavily. We are less than 100 days away from the election. Let us be smart. Please get out there and vote. Register to vote. Know where you can go. Please go to vote.org if you're unsure. And that is a site that can immensely help you with voter registration, knowing where to go, what you'll need to bring. Because trust me, if voting was not important, they would not be trying to do everything possible to make it harder for you to do so. Again, get involved, get active, know the candidates. I mean, get to know, I hate to say it, get to know not only Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, because right now there's a lot of misinformation out there about her that needs to be cleared up, and you can do so. Get to know her VP pick, Governor Tom Walz, because again, the man has done a lot, but get to know what the man stands on. And if you must, because, you know, Trump ain't about shit, but get to know J.D. Vance if you choose to. The reason why I'm getting at this, guys, is know the candidates. And again, if you get a chance to talk to them, hold their feet to the fire. But we can no longer sit on the sidelines, guys, because there is a real threat to our country. And I would be remiss not to sit there and point out that cockroach, if he is allowed back in, the second act is going to be way worse than the first one. So again, get active, get involved, please vote. This is not the time to sit out. The last thing I'll say about Frack We Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right our wrongs by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, and hopefully electing our first Black woman to be the first Black Madam President of the United States of America. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old gang in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. I promise we'll get through this. Peace.